All right, welcome back, everyone. You're watching The Green Room with a special episode today with our very special guests, Juma and DJ Lady Grace. We're talking about holy hip-hop today. So Juma was just telling us how the polka dots went away, hammer went away, but this thing lingering around doesn't want to go.
Yeah, this whole it's a whole new genre, yo. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's the I guess it started with the crunk thing, and you know it's now this whole I like, and don't get me wrong when I say it. Don't get me wrong when I say this. I like there's a lot of Southern style music out there that I like, that it's done well, and I'm legitimately a fan of. However, you know, there's some stuff that is just ridiculous, man. You know what I'm saying? Like now cats, all they do is get on a synthesizer and be like, dun, 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 and then do the little 808 drum. You know what I'm saying? That old school 808 snare. And you know what I'm saying? And like, you know, it's a record. It's out there. I just think, you know, there needs to be a stepping up of
That's right.
Of production, but that won't happen until, you know, listeners demand something different. In the 90s,
that's true.
You couldn't get away with that stuff. You know what I'm saying?
People are buying those records, so
they're buying those records. You couldn't get away with you couldn't get away with being garbage. I mean, you had like everybody was doing something ill and different. You had Busta, Tribe, Dre and them came out with it. You know what I'm saying? Like everybody was unique and doing something ill and funky and different. And now, you know what I'm saying? Everybody's just riding this wave, and because gospel, and I'll say this, gospel and secular, both music industries, they're businesses. They're out to make capital, and you know what I'm saying? If it's making money, it'll continue to flourish on the airwaves and the venues and avenues and channels. You know what I'm saying? So until you know, listeners, you know, get a taste of something different and want something different. Right. You know, I think this stuff is gonna continue to pervade, man, and like ultimately.
Now speaking of, I was hanging out with a couple of my friends. I think 2 weeks ago, I was at a Bible study, and one of them put on a song, and without even hearing the lyrics, one of our other friends was like, "That's not gospel." Because the kind of music it was like this crunk, you know, the same thing that we hear, but it was a gospel song. But the way the lyrics that are on there were all Christian songs. So what do you think about that? Because my friend was like, I can't listen to that because the production in itself, it already carries a message. Just the soundtrack itself carries a message. Do you agree with that? Like there's some sound, some particular music that just has this message to it. Like I can hear like this dirty South song from down there, and I just know that this is the kind of message that it's carrying. Do you agree with that, or we can take that back and sort of change the perception of it? I don't know. I'm not sure what to think about that.
Did you? Yeah, a scale in music. You know, I play piano. So when you're going up the scale, you know, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's neither secular nor gospel.
Exactly. Yeah,
and that's, you know, music. Okay. You know, you have harmonies, you have scales, you have melodies. All these things don't fall into a religious or non-religious category. It's music, and it's what that person creates. So because of that, you can't say, well, that's, you know, that's gospel and that's secular. What you have to look at who's creating the music. You know, to be the artist has just as much of a responsibility as the producer.
Right.
You know, and that can kind of get into the whole scale. Well, should Christian artists be using secular producers? I mean, that's a whole other category we can get into. But I would say, you know, when it comes to a murder, you know, the bull is just as responsible as the weapon, as the gun. You could say, you know.
That's right.
So
there's responsibility
on both parts. So. Yeah, I don't think a beat you can't just label a beat a gospel or secular.
Can you label a beat, Juma?
I can label a beat and say it's whack or not. I'm being silly. But, you know, I don't think you can, you know, listen, you know, I'm as saved as they come. And I've had people, you know, or I like to believe I'm as saved as they come. I don't know, that's maybe I want to retract that statement because they come in all kinds of ways these days. But, you know, I've had people listen to my record and say, say the same thing. That's not gospel. you know, even though, you know, in the process of writing my record, you know, much prayer and fasting goes into the stuff, and I totally ask God to remove me from the process and take over and that sort of things. And what comes, you know, I believe is earnestly, you know, divinely inspired as best as I can, you know what I'm saying, generate. But you know, I would have to look at the person and wonder, okay, you know what I'm saying, you got to consider a couple of things. It's like, all right, you got to consider, I would question the person's, for lack of a better term, experience or maturity in the word, and you know what I'm saying, just discernment, you know what I'm saying, because sometimes it's like this. There's certain Christian artists that I hear, you know what I'm saying, that may have a may have a gospel message, but you know, viscerally, they just
turn you off.
They turn me off. I can't respond to them. You know what I'm saying? I can't identify with what's emanating from them.
Okay. So appearance is very important.
Discernment.
Discernment is important.
Is important. Discernment is critical.
All right. Critical.
So I would just say discernment is the important thing when listening to music and evaluating, you know, what's Christian and what's not, because you can have a person that doesn't have a really high JPM, Jesus per minute, you know what I'm saying, but like myself, you know, my JPM ain't that high, you know what I'm saying? But listen, you know what I'm saying? I love God, I love Jesus, man, and
all right.
You know what I'm saying? That's what it is.
So let's talking on that. Let's talk about appearances. What do you place emphasis? Well, not place emphasis, but do you think there's some importance to the way a Christian carries themselves, the way they present themselves? They come out, you know, in sagging pants, or you know, the Air Force Ones or whatever. I don't know. I mean, for the women, I think you can kind of tell when you cross the line between modest or not.
It's a little, it's
easier for the ladies, but for the guys, it's a little more tricky. What do you think about that, Lady Grace? What do you think?
You have
bling dripping down to the.
You don't want. I mean, if you're performing, I mean, you want people to be focused on your message and what you're saying, and not necessarily on yourself. Okay. You know, if we, as most people, Christians traditionally say, you know, Lord, I decrease, so you may increase. That's right. But if your shirt has decreased, you know what I mean, in the front here, you know, so say, I mean, I think your attention is gonna be more on other, you know, other parts than really your song. So you just got to be conscious of that. Okay. And I think a lot of that comes from just having good mentors and people discipling you. Okay. You have some people that believe that a Christian's maturity shows by the way they dressed. Okay. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think the Bible is very clear as far as being ye transformed by the renewing of your mind and not necessarily your clothes. Now, earlier today we had a conversation with a gentleman who was talking about guys. Juma can probably talk about this more than me. I mean, wearing baggy pants, and you do see that at a lot of Christian hip hop concerts. Yeah. You know, and some people get offended. And I think that has to go into, you gotta be careful how you exercise your God-given liberty and freedom, because you can, you know, people aren't gonna be able to hear what you're saying just because of how you dress. Right. So if you know it's gonna offend them by you dressing that way, then don't do it. Okay. No, it's not that big of a deal. What do you think, Juma? You don't have any bling on, so. No earrings.
No earrings. No earrings. I have, I'm kind of old school when it comes to that. And I believe this, you know what I'm saying? Culturally, in the culture we exist in, you know what I'm saying? And even men have a certain appearance. Women have a certain appearance. We were talking with the older gentleman backstage, and the conversation came about the sagging, like Grace was saying about the sagging of the pants and that sort of thing. You know, we got to look at what that comes from. You know what I'm saying? It comes from the joint. You know what I'm saying? And in the joint, it means something different. Yeah. Right. Me personally, I believe, you know, a man should have a certain swagger, if you will. You know what I'm saying? That's the word they like to use. The word they like to use, even though, you know, it's crazy. You got 30 men in their 30s talking, you know, arguing about whose swagger is. I'm like, dog, you're too old for that. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's another thing too. You know what I'm saying? I think maturity plays a part, because at 29 years old, certain fashion trends that, you know, are coming out of the secular hip hop culture, I see, and I don't want to. I don't want to emulate, because to me it's foolishness. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to wear, where I'm from. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you can do a pink Docker shirt or something like that, but you can't come on my block wearing pink, all flamboyant like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't get down like that. And not again, I'm not knocking anybody who does. You know what I'm saying? But I don't get down like that. I think, I mean, these are just my personal convictions, my personal views. I just believe that as a man, you know what I'm saying, you got a certain swagger. But if you call yourself, you know, a thug or a dog or animal, or, you know what I'm saying, any kind of, all these things that are going around, those boundaries aren't in place. So you're subject to do anything. You're subject to, like you see these, you know, these hip hop guys out here doing. You're subject to, I mean, look at Lil Wayne, for goodness sakes, my Lord. I mean, you're subject to do anything without those boundaries in place. So you
think there should be some standard.
There should be
a standard that Christians say, okay, this is what, I don't want to look like the world because I'm dedicated to God. I should present a certain vision of myself or whatever, something like that.
Well, that's what we get into problems. Is what does that mean? What does it look like to? What does it mean to look like the world?
All right, we're gonna talk about that. We'll talk about that.
We'll
talk about that. Let's just cut to this video in a second. We'll be right back. Y'all stay tuned. You're watching The Green Room.